over and over again. Because then we are convinced, then we understand its importance, and then we are inspired to practice it. Of course, willy-nilly we all are bhaktas. We may talk about Brahman and this and Maya, etc., but ultimately, like Sri Ramakrishna, he did everything. But ghure fire mama. That means after returning from all the paths, it is mother, 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 mother. Swami Vivekananda, he came here, he talked about Vedanta here. But in his heart of heart, he was a devotee. As we can understand, Sri Ramakrishna was internally jnani, externally devotee. Swami Vivekananda, on the other hand, was externally jnani, but internally bhakta. Actually, these are not two different ideas. It's the same idea expressed in different ways. Until or unless you have total dedication, whatever you do, nothing will happen. When totally dedication, that means what? Is it knowledge? Yes. Why? Because then one understands that whatever we see, it is one. It is one who is manifesting in so many forms. Neha nanasti kinchana. Here there are not many. In bhakti, what we do? We totally surrender. So again, sacrifice of a small ego. Ultimately, it is the same thing. But some people stick to it. No, one is jnani, no, one is bhakta. It's all man-made. Rather, we follow all four paths, like karma, jnana, bhakti, and Raj Yoga. As Swami Vivekananda said, that if the whole blood goes to our head, can we call him a healthy person? No. Because it's imbalance. Rather, it should be equitably distributed. The blood should be equitably distributed. Wherever it is required more, supply also should go more. Like brain requires more blood should go to brain. So this is our way of understanding, especially in our order. So now I request Swami Arupeshananda to come forward there. And before we proceed today, I have a little ritual, and we have to honor him as a guest speaker. So please permit me. Thank you.
Oh, something else is happening. Wow, what is this? Okay.
So this is from us as a loving gift.
I got a coffee mug. Well, he knows what I like. So Maharaj gave a pretty good summary of the path of a little bit. The title of this talk is The Path of Devotion. And I gave a class on the imitation of Christ a couple nights ago in Hollywood. And the very first line of the book, "Whoever follows me shall not walk in darkness." This idea of following, says the Lord, I'm sorry, I missed that, it's an important part. "Whoever follows me shall not walk in darkness, says the Lord." And so that is the path of devotion, to follow the Lord. This is a path, this is something we're going to walk. And we do not want to do this. You can stop right there and think about this phrase, because really what we want to do is walk just about any other path. Sri Ramakrishna says that even if it is in darkness, doesn't matter. Sri Ramakrishna says that the camel loves to eat thorny plants and will not stop eating thorny plants, even though the blood is gushing out of its mouth. And this was brought home to me recently because I know a man who basically he ruined his life. This is about 10 years ago it started. His high school sweetheart, the woman of his dreams, came back into his life. He was married and had a baby girl. Or maybe she was 1 or 2, whatever, she was young. And the high school sweetheart comes back, she just got divorced, and she says, I want you back. And everyone says, don't do this. This woman is on the rebound, and after she gets over her pain from her divorce, she's going to dump you. Well, he doesn't listen to them. Even his parents told him, don't do this. This is a mistake. Didn't listen to anyone, and instead ran off with his high school sweetheart. Of course, she did exactly what everybody said. She dumped him after she recovered from her divorce. And then somehow or other, I don't know how, never heard his wife's side of the story, she took him back, gave him another chance, probably for the sake of the child. And then he starts drinking. And at this point, and this is many years have gone by, but now we're going to start drinking, and we're going to have a problem with drinking. And so at this point, daughter or no daughter, I think daughter's about 13, 14 at this point, the wife has had enough, throws him out. And he goes to rehab to overcome his drinking. And they tell him in rehab, what they tell everyone in rehab, meditate. It's the only way to overcome your addiction, is meditation. And so I happened to see him, and he wanted to know about meditation. He knew that I was doing some strange thing in a monastery somewhere. And so I must know something about this, and so he was curious to hear a few words about it. And it became clear that he was willing to listen to some mindfulness techniques, some kind of Buddhist breathing thing or something. He wanted nothing to do with God. The idea of devoting yourself to God, to giving your heart to a supreme being, well, that was a depth to which he would not stoop, even in his low condition. Even after ruining his life, he still had some scruples. That's what it seemed like. There were certain things he would not do, even though he was at his wit's end. He'd ruined everything, yet that one teaching, follow me and you will not walk in darkness, says the Lord, it was unacceptable to him. Other things, okay, we'll try breathing. And so this teaching, to walk the path of devotion, is something that very few of us are really willing to do. But what we find, amazingly, is that these people that are so resistant to this path of devotion do wind up devoting themselves. They just don't devote themselves to God. We find that these people who look down upon religious fervor give their fervor to something else. Entertainment ideals or idols, or one or the other or both. You become so enamored of your entertainment icon that perhaps you lose your balance, and a judge needs to give a restraining order and keep you 100 yards away from Taylor Swift or whoever it is. And you become fanatic and consumed, and you can't think about anything else, and you start losing control of your judgments. And if it isn't the idol, it's the ideal. Maybe I don't want a particular person, I want to be the famous person. There was another great story about that in the news. You know, this news gives us a lot of fuel for our religious understanding at times. This was one of the TV show star named Matthew Perry. Remember him?
Oh, yeah.
Friends, that's right. I never saw the show, but you had to know who this guy was. Everybody did. So Matthew Perry wants to be famous. This is before he lands the title role of Friends. And he's reading in the gossip magazines, it's 30 years ago or whatever, when they had gossip magazines. Now everybody does this on Instagram, I guess, but back then it was magazines. So he's reading in the gossip magazine about another actor of his generation, Charlie Sheen, who's had a disastrous life, who has ruined himself with sex and drugs and just out of control behavior. Rehab, jail, all these things. And he's reading about this and how, you know, Charlie Sheen is humiliating himself on every tabloid and every grocery store in the country. Everybody sees this, even if you don't have any interest in this. You can't help it. There he is again, the poor guy on the, you know, making a fool of himself on the magazine rack. So Matthew Perry reads this and he thinks to himself, well, but what does he care about this? He's famous. If you were famous in his mind, that would protect you from all this chaos. Just this one thing, fame, would make you bulletproof to life's vicissitudes. Your ship would never sink if you could just be famous. He had this idea. And he said for the first time in his life, he got down on his knees and prayed to God and said, "Dear God, I don't care what you do with me. Just make me famous." 1 week later, he landed the role of Chandler in Friends. 1 week later. This is straight out of the Bhagavad Gita, where Sri Krishna says, most men worship the devas for rewards in this world. This kind of worldly gain can be acquired very quickly here. That's exactly what he did. He asked with all his heart. He believed that this was going to save him, and he got it. The universe said, okay, go check it out. See what it does for you. And we know how it ended up. It didn't save him from his demons, of course. I think we're all here today. We all know this, that fame is not some magic pill or bulletproof vest or whatever you want to call it. And so if we don't have an idol, maybe we have an ideal. And if it's not entertainment, it could be politics. And we see where that's taking us. People treat their political positions as a kind of scripture, and they have a kind of fervor about it, and then the opposition is demonic, and you've got all kinds of problems. Or we idealize the intellectual world. And you think, okay, well, maybe. But then maybe you say, yeah, but I know people who aren't interested in any of those things. They're not interested in politics or entertainment or intellectual advancement. They're too consumed with food, sex, and money to think about anything else. But you'll find even then that those people will have some kind of food idol. Someone who can, like some gourmet chef or someone who can eat a bazillion hot dogs in a minute or whatever it is. Or sex symbol or some tycoon or some entrepreneur who's managed to really make a killing. There's some idol. In other words, what I'm saying is that no matter where we are and what we're doing, there is a constitutional element to the human nature that compels us to have an ideal and to strive for that ideal. If we do not pick this, as the Lord says in the Imitation of Christ, whoever follows me shall not walk in darkness, says the Lord, we will follow something else. So choose your ideal wisely. Now, what we're choosing here today is this path of devotion. And so we get to this point where perhaps we see through all these other things. These celebrities, they sometimes act like idiots. Maybe they shouldn't be my ideal. Fame isn't going to do it for me. The politicians are corrupt. I can't really idolize them either. And so then we look to religion. Maybe there's an ideal in religion after all. And we read the scripture. We open up some book. And I picked the Bhagavad Gita. It says, the Lord is everywhere and always perfect. And you think, wait a minute, I just rejected all these things because they're not going to work. And now the Lord is everywhere and always perfect. How is it possible that all these things that are so flawed and crazy, and now the Lord is everywhere and always perfect? This doesn't make any sense at all. And so we try and make sense out of this. And we find that our desire to make sense out of things, to know and understand, is getting in the way of our path of devotion. Swami Shivananda says that there is no injustice in God's domain. That's almost as hard to swallow as the Lord is everywhere and always perfect. Maybe more. We see all these things happening here and we think, where is the justice in famine and war and disease and all these things that are going on? And of all places, we find in the Old Testament a detailed defense in the Jewish tradition of God's actions in this world. It is a famous passage from the book of Ecclesiastes. It says, for everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. And it lists a bunch of stuff here. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to find, a time to lose, a time to mourn, a time to dance, a time for war and a time for peace. We see all these things happening. We know they're happening. There's a time for them. It's all ordered. It's all in proper order. It does not seem that way. It seems like chaos. And yet in every religion somewhere you will find that the Lord has every leaf of grass under his control. And the Old Testament says he has made everything beautiful in its time. All these things are beautiful in their time. We can understand that sometimes. For example, we buy a new house, we move in with our new spouse, we're going to have a family and mow the lawn and make it all pretty. Beautiful. The spouse loses interest in us, the bank forecloses on the house, we lose our job, we're out in the street. Not beautiful. There's a time for both according to this, and they're both beautiful. Well, we can't understand this, and we want to understand. And this desire to understand stops us from developing the kind of heartfelt devotion that we need. And why do we have this need to understand? Why do we have this thirst for an ideal that doesn't let us down? Again, that same chapter in Ecclesiastes says, God has put eternity in the human heart. Or as Christ says, the kingdom of God is within you. Or as Sri Ramakrishna says, God dwells within the human heart. Wherever you want to see it, again, every religion will tell you somewhere or other that there is perfection innate inside of our consciousness somewhere. And this perfection permeates our lives like some kind of aroma that we can't quite grasp. Sri Ramakrishna compares this to a musk deer. That this perfection, this joy that we think is just out there somewhere, is this musk deer. It has this scent in its navel, and it smells, and it runs after one thing and after another thing, thinking that it's going to find this wonderful smell. And we look for our entertainment idols, we look for our political idols, we look for our intellectual heroes, and we try and find this perfection that we sense, this joy and love that we sense around us somewhere. It's got to be somewhere. And so we wind up frustrated. In Sri Ramakrishna's illustration of the musk deer, he says that the musk deer runs around, and eventually just drops over dead. And yet we can't really give up this desire to know. We can't really let go of it. We want to know, and we can't stop wanting to know. And Sri Ramakrishna says, as does the book of Ecclesiastes. The book of Ecclesiastes says, no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. And Sri Ramakrishna says, can we ever understand all these things with our little intellect? He says, can a 1-seer pot hold 4 seers of milk? It's hopeless, and we seem to be condemned to do it anyway. This is what we get. It just seems cruel, actually, if you think about it. God gave us this desire to know and this inability to satisfy that desire. Well, it turns out we're asking the wrong question. And it's brilliant, but the Upanishads thought about this thousands of years ago. They asked this different question. The question was, what is that, knowing which nothing else remains to be known? Is there such a thing? I mean, just the idea that you could find such a thing shows remarkable thoughtfulness. I mean, does that question even occur to us? And you know, this is actually, in some sense, what they're trying to do at CERN. I mean, they're trying to find, they never will, and they know that, but the ultimate, the theory of everything. You'd like to solve the theory of everything, which you can't do, but CERN, this collider in Europe, you know what I'm talking about. What they'd like to do, which they'll never be able to do, is find the particle. Unify the 4 forces and find the particle that mediates the force. There's 4 forces. I'm going to geek out with physics here a little bit. Sorry. 4 forces: electromagnetic, strong, weak, nuclear, and gravity. To unify those 4 forces, you would need a super collider that could smash particles together at a temperature of 10 to the 32 degrees. What does that mean? 1 followed by 32 zeros. That's how hot it would have to get before you could get that particle. When did that temperature ever happen? Right, just a tiny little briefest moment after the Big Bang. That was the only time in the history of the universe that temperature was reached. We are never going to build a collider that will solve the theory of everything. It is never going to happen. Every physicist knows this. And yet, we're still building colliders. We're hoping that we get something out of it because we can't really stop this search. But the Hindus didn't build colliders. They didn't look there. They looked within. And what they say, the answer to this, knowing which nothing else remains to be known, the answer to that is the Lord within. Sri Krishna says in the Gita, devote your whole mind to me and practice yoga. Take me for your only refuge. I will tell you how. By doing this, you can know me in my total reality without any shadow of doubt. When a man has that, nothing else in this world remains to be known. And so we have to be, the extent to which we can accept this proposition that there is something knowing which nothing else remains to be known, you're never going to get it in this world, either through pursuing all these things or colliding particles in a super collider None of that is going to work. But there is something, knowing which nothing else remains to be known. The extent to which we are willing to accept this depends on whether or not we are still involved with these other things. Do we want to go build a collider? Do we need to go look at movie stars? Do we need to be famous or rich or any of these things? If we still feel that any of those other avenues will bring us lasting happiness, lasting peace, like Matthew Perry, we still think that some position or person in our life is going to bring us security and joy in the face of life's ups and downs, we are going to have a hard time accepting the truth of this verse, which says that I, the Lord, am the answer to that, what you are looking for. So this is what Sri Ramakrishna calls coming to the end of enjoyments. There has to come a certain satiety, and you never really know when it comes. And there's all these stories about people who have devoted their lives to spiritual practice, and then some desire comes up, and they get distracted by some person or some job. I've seen this. It was hilarious. This guy comes to Trabuco monastery. He's going to spend the summer with us. The day he showed up, the woman of his dreams who dumped him 5 years ago calls him on the phone and says, I want you back. The day he showed up. I mean, it just seemed perverse. And that kind of thing I saw many times where people came and they stayed in the monastery and they did the monastery routine for a while, and the life opportunities outside got more and more appealing. Some job opened up, some opportunity to go back to school opened up. All these things opened up for them. Out, you're in the monastery, but you got one eye looking out the window. What's it look like out there? How's the weather? And it's starting to look like a really sunny day. And I've seen a lot of people, this happens. You have this, you practice some discipline, and then this little opportunity comes and you go. Because there's part of your mind that still says there's something out there that's going to work for me, that's going to give me security and joy and peace in the face of all the chaos of this world. As long as we have that doubt, we're going to have a hard time staying on this path. And for better or worse, Swami Vivekananda says that the only real teacher is experience. The reason, if you are able to withstand the temptations of this experience, it's because you've had this experience already and you don't need it anymore. So, assuming we're willing to try this and we're willing to try and know God, how do we do it? Well, now we find ourselves back to the path of devotion yet again. Sri Ramakrishna gives us some very good advice. He says, it is enough if we realize God, and we see God himself if we but see his incarnation. Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, Ramakrishna, all these historical figures, incarnations of God. And he explains this, because Sri Krishna said that you can know me in my total reality. That sounds like a big thing. Sri Ramakrishna makes this very simple through a metaphor. He says, suppose a person goes to the Ganges and touches its water. He will then say, yes, I have seen and touched the Ganges. To say this, it is not necessary for him to touch the whole length of the river, from Haridwar to Gangasagar. And so, to know God is to know his incarnation. That is to know the complete reality of God according to this teaching. And how do we do that? Another beautiful line from the Gita, one of my very favorites. To love is to know me, my innermost nature, the truth that I am. To love is to know me, my innermost nature, the truth that I am. One of the reasons that line is so beautiful is that he does not say, to love me is to know me. He says to love is to know me. And this is an experience that we have all had. We have all, just last night, someone came I hadn't seen for so many years, and you see an old friend that you haven't seen in a long time, and love wells up in your heart. And for just maybe a brief few seconds, you forget yourself. You even forget the person you're happy to see. You don't ask, oh, gee, how you been all this time? You're just so happy to see this person, you don't even really need to talk to them. That love, when that happens, those blessed moments that we have all had in our lives, whatever it was, it could have been a new car. There's a moment of ecstasy where the thing shows up, or a new house, and you get that feeling of love and it transports you. That experience, Sri Krishna says, is to know me, that bliss of love. But what's the problem? The problem is we love a car. Well, then we get confused between the love feeling and the object of love. We think it's the car, and then we need another car and another car, because the cars are love. Or we fall in love with our sweethearts, and we think, now I need to have more love, and we'll put the sweetheart in a house and make more people and have more love and get a dog and have more love. And as we go on trying to get more and more love in our lives, it's like trying to know everything one thing at a time. Just as that is impossible, you're never going to build the super collider that gives you the theory of everything. You're never going to be able to know everything one thing at a time. You're never going to be able to love everything one thing at a time. Just as there is something knowing which nothing else remains to be known, so there is something loving which nothing else remains to be loved, and they are the same thing. So we see that this thirst for knowledge is actually satisfied through the heart. When the heart is full, there are no questions. There's no sense of lack. Now I need to know all these different things. No, my heart is full. That's all that matters. And so what we want is to be established in this, love, to have it lasting and abiding. The problem with the love in this world, you love the car gets rusty. You love the spouse, and the spouse is unfaithful or unreliable, or whatever happens. Something happens here to the object of our love. We need a love that transcends that. And again, religion promises us this. In the Narada Bhakti Sutras, it is said, attaining that, a man becomes perfect, immortal, and satisfied forever. Satisfied forever. There is a love, according to religion, that we can have that will satisfy us forever. This is what we really want. As Sri Krishna says in the Gita, the heart so full, it hardly holds its love. So, in order to bring this perhaps a little bit closer to home, I'm going to give an example of someone I found who seems to have realized just this. It's a beautiful story. This was found in a church in France. It was written anonymously in the 19th century. It said, from the diary of an old man. It was found in the office of a priest, so it's quite possible this person was a priest, but it might not have been his. They didn't know when they found this piece of paper. He was a devotee of Jesus. This is his experience. He says, Jesus has come to take up his abode in my heart. It is not so much a habitation or an association as a sort of fusion. O new and blessed life, life which becomes each day more luminous. That's something else that's in the Narada Bhakti Sutras, that this love grows in intensity. This man says, life which each day becomes more luminous. That is actually echoing the Narada Bhakti Sutras. He says, there is a royal song of triumph in my heart. There is a royal song of triumph in my heart because the Lord is there. It is always the same figure before me, always the same presence filling my heart. Formerly, the days were dulled by the absence of the Lord. I used to wake invaded by all sorts of sad impressions, and I did not find him on my path. Today, he is with me, and he is not merely making me a visit. It is no mere dazzling apparition, which may from one moment to another spread its wings and leave me in my night. It is a permanent habitation. He can depart only if he takes me with him. And that's an amazing thing to say, isn't it? He can depart only if he takes me with him. You know this. You know you have a love that is becoming more dazzling every day, and you can never lose it. This is what we're promised through this religious path of devotion. He continues, more than that, he is not other than myself. He is one with me. It is not a juxtaposition. It is a penetration, a profound modification of my nature, a new manner of my being. Transformational love. Transformational love that gets better and better and better, that you feel completely secure in because you can never lose. His chosen ideal was Jesus. He was a priest. There are many. According to Eastern thinking, it doesn't really matter who you choose. This depends on your own temperaments, what appeals to you, what kind of divine personality attracts you. This is how we choose our ideal, and actually, it's really better to have an experienced guide who chooses your ideal for you, because the problem with this, choosing our own ideal, is that we decide we're going to embark on this spiritual life, and we've picked somebody we like, and we read about him or whatever, St. Francis or Buddha or Ramakrishna. We pick someone we like, and things get better. They do. We realize our life, if we actually try this, and we've never tried this before, or even if we've just taken a long break, we realize that our life's getting better. It's different. I'm in a good mood now. Things are looking up. This goes on for a while, maybe 6 months or a year. And then we hit the wall, because that's what happens in spiritual life. You have your ups and downs. It isn't all up and it isn't all rosy. There is going to be a time sooner or later when things get tough. You hit the wall and you think, wow, I feel dry. That devotion, that excitement, that elevation, I don't feel it anymore. Now I feel like I'm just kind of the same guy I was 6 months ago. Maybe I haven't gotten anywhere. Maybe I picked the wrong ideal. Maybe I should go try somebody else. No. See, this is why you want a guru, among other things. The guru, which you have to have faith in. You have to understand. You have to select the guru carefully, because you have to have faith in the guru, that this guru actually chose for you an ideal which is right for you and is a better judge of what you need than you are. You have to have enough faith in the guru to deeply hold to that tenet, that this guru, this guide, knows my ideal better than I do. You must be able to hold on to that, because times are going to get tough. You're going to have your ups and downs, and you've got to be able to hold to that one ideal. So anyway, for what it's worth, I advocate Sri Ramakrishna. I guess that's no surprise. Here I am wearing this outfit. Why? Well, as I said last night, some of you were here for that, I believe that what Sri Krishna says in the Gita, that God comes to this earth from time to time. Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, all these incarnations come. This is said in the Gita, that when goodness grows weak, when evil increases, I make myself a body. In every age I come to establish righteousness, to destroy the sin of the sinner, to deliver the holy. This is the promise Sri Krishna makes in the Gita. And I've always thought it was eminently reasonable that we're kind of confused down here on this planet, and we tend to blow the message after a while, and God comes and says, okay, well, it's time to fix this again, right? This always seemed reasonable to me. And so, following that logic, Sri Ramakrishna has the message for this age. And, as I said last night, one of those messages, I won't go into a whole bunch of detail on it because we talked about it last night, is the message of harmony. And how the harmony of religions is really kind of a harmony of opinions, or at least a tolerance of opinions, which is something that we so sorely need in society today. So practicing Sri Ramakrishna's instructions includes having some patience and understanding for your fellow man, even when they have opinions that you don't agree with. That's one message he gives, is this religious harmony message. Another message that I think is so important that Sri Ramakrishna gives is universal salvation. It's interesting because this was actually a doctrine in the early Christian church. Pre-Nicene Creed Christianity had a teacher named Origen who advocated universal salvation, even for Satan. Satan was also going to be saved. Everyone was going to be saved. This was Origen. He was very influential in the early church. He's out. He was declared a heretic in, 500 AD or something by some other church council, and all his teachings were anathema. However that goes, why is universal salvation such a present need? I mean, we may think that 1,000 years ago is much more important. Now, how many people believe in heaven and hell? How many people are worried about whether or not they're going to go to heaven or hell when they die? I mean, do people seriously take eternal hellfire? Do they take that seriously? Some, but a lot of people think those people are kind of bats. So why is this idea of universal salvation still relevant to our modern society, modern, increasingly secular and skeptical society? Why is this idea of universal salvation so relevant? Because the truth to which we are approaching, which we are all going to find, which is going to save all of us, is one. There is one truth that we are all going to. And until we get there, our religion that we subscribe to is a label. I label myself a Christian or a Buddhist or a Muslim or a Jew or anything else. It's a label. This clothing is a label. He's one of those. He doesn't look the part, but he's wearing the outfit. So it's a label. Religion is a label until we realize this truth. It is a label. How many other labels are there in our society? So many. There's political labels. I don't have to tell you them. Liberal, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, all these things, all these labels. And then there's skin color labels. I'm white, yellow, brown, whatever, all these. But then they're also getting complicated. There's racial and ethnic labels. And now you can have a race, two people of the same race with different ethnicities. I've looked this up and tried to figure this out, and I can't really understand what they're saying. But you can have a race with two different ethnicities and an ethnicity of different races. Anyway, so the labels have kind of mushroomed or forked or bifurcated or something in there. And then, of course, the big one is gender. I looked this up on Google. I mean, it used to be so simple, male, female. And now, and I learned a few others, non-binary and gender curious or something. I'm getting old, and it's hard to keep up, and you just don't care anymore after a while. But I looked it up on Google. 70. There's 70 genders. God knows what they are. I have no idea. Some people think this is a terrible development. Other people think this is wonderful. It doesn't matter. They're all just labels. The truth to which we are all headed has no label. There's no label on that final truth. So what are these labels that we are putting on ourselves? And we compare them. My labels are pretty sophisticated. You have beginner labels. Your labels are, you don't understand. My labels are too complicated for you. We have this kind of comparison with our labels. And then there's a hostility of labels. I don't like your labels. Your labels are opposed to my labels. And what this teaching says with universal salvation, these labels are just a phase. We're passing through this. All of us are passing through these labels, and we are all headed to a truth beyond labels, a final truth which cannot be labeled. Don't take your labels too seriously. Don't take the other person's labels too seriously. If they annoy you, they're just going through a phase like you are. And however much you are attached to your labels, realize you're going to transcend them, because we are all going to transcend them, because we are all headed towards this universal salvation. Sri Ramakrishna says, all will surely realize God. All will be liberated. It may be that some get their meal in the morning, some at noon, and some in the evening, but none will go without food. All, without any exception, will certainly know their real self. So we are all headed to a truth without labels. And we are asked along the way to be patient with each other in our diverse opinions. So, to practice this religion, it is required of us not only to grow spiritually, but to be understanding and beneficial to the society at large. Part of Sri Ramakrishna's message is not just about individual salvation, it is inherently about a community of willing and more loving people. And so we can be part of that. And I think we all should. May the good Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May he lift his countenance upon you and give you peace. May good betide all. May happiness come to all. May all see the face of truth and be fortified with the armor of love, goodwill, joy, and understanding. Om, peace, peace, peace. Peace be unto us. Peace be unto all. Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om, Tat Sat.
If you have any questions, you can go ahead.
I have a question. My question is, did you recognize the closing chant? Some of you must have. You did.
Sure.
Okay, you did. All right. Yeah, I stole it from him. Okay, that's my question. Yeah.
I remember.
That's it? I'm the only question? I guess it's all totally obvious. There's one. Okay. Amal.
Questions are important.
I guess I want to be a little devil's advocate.
Okay.
And question, find out what your response is. Because the main, so when we talk about labels and identifying with a label and being opposed to another label, I feel like if you identify with a label that, what's the response when we perceive that other labels are being harmful to certain other labels? Like they are causing harm, and how do we approach that?
Yeah,
And
great
do you have
question.
feelings about that?
Yeah, sure, great question. I would give you Sri Ramakrishna's illustration of the snake, which you know. but I'll hum a few bars for those who don't. And I'll go into some details that I think are left out of that parable. So there's a snake in a village, terrifying these shepherd boys. And it, they live in fear of this snake. And so this holy man comes to the village, and he's going to go near the snake's area. And the village boys say, "Don't go over there, holy sir, because there's a snake, and he's really mean. He'll bite you and kill you." And the holy man says, "Don't worry about it. I know some snake mantras. I got this." And so he goes to where the snake is, and the snake comes to get him. And he says his magic snake mantra, and the snake falls on the ground like a worm. And the holy man gives him spiritual instruction, gives him a mantra, initiates him into spiritual life, and the snake is transformed. And he gets up and bows to the teacher with great reverence and says, "Holy sir, how should I conduct my life?" And the holy man says, "Do no harm. Repeat that mantra I gave you, and do no harm. I'll see you again." And he comes back, and in the meantime, the shepherd boys notice that this snake is behaving very strangely. It's behaving like a defenseless earthworm, and they can get closer and closer to it. And eventually, one of the daring boys grabs it by the tail and smacks it on the head a bunch of times and leaves it for dead. They throw it away, and that's the end of the snake. They don't see the snake anymore. They figure it's gone, dead. So then the holy man comes back, and he asks about the snake. "Where's the snake?" And the boys say, "Oh, he's dead. We don't see it anymore." And he doesn't believe it. So he goes looking for the snake, and he gave it a spiritual name. So he calls it by the spiritual name that he gave it, and the snake comes out of its hole, seeing the teacher. And it's a wreck. The snake is a wreck. He's thin, and he's a mess. And the holy teacher says, "What happened to you? You're a wreck." And the snake says, "Oh, well, you told me not to do any harm, so I've just been eating fruit and dirt and leaves." And the holy man says, "It can't just be that. Something else must have happened." See, the snake, through this repetition, this is an important point, through the repetition of the mantra, the snake had been transformed and had actually forgotten that the shepherd boys had almost beaten it to death. That was a while ago. In the meantime, it's kind of thin because it's not getting, mice or whatever it was eating before. So it's forgotten this thing. This is the quality of sattva, this ability to forgive. And it is a state that we achieve through spiritual practice. Okay. So then the teacher says to the snake, "Think a little bit. There must be something else." And the snake says, "Oh yeah, those kids try to kill me, but I can't blame them. How could they know the profound change that had come over my nature?" And the holy man says, "You're such an idiot. Why didn't you hiss at them? I told you not to bite them, but you could hiss at them and scare them away." And so the moral that Sri Ramakrishna gives is that this is what we have to do in worldly life. Yes, we are sadhakas. Yes, we are spiritual aspirants. We are trying to be unselfish and loving, and there are people out there who are going to take advantage of us if we do that. If they say, "Oh, wow, this guy was kind of a little rough and ready before, and now he seems like one of these snake earthworm transformations have happened. Well, let's go, let's see what we can get from him." They'll take advantage of you. Now, here's the point, the subtle point that I'd like to bring up that is not really covered so much, at least in the writings I've seen about this parable, and that is, what exactly is a bite and what exactly is a hiss? You say, "I bit," or you say, "I hissed," and the other person says, "No, you didn't, you bit me." And you think, "Well, I thought I just hissed." And then when exactly am I threatened? When is it necessary to hiss? How often do I have to hiss? As we go on in our spiritual life, we will find that we don't need to hiss nearly as much as we thought we did. That feeling of alarm that I have to protect myself, this is a moving target. We have some idea of all the things I need to do to protect myself now. And we continue on this path of devotion for a while, and we will find that the number of things we feel like we need to do in order to protect ourselves has decreased dramatically. And we are not hissing nearly as much as we once did. And consequently, we are much happier people. Hissing isn't really that fun. So anyway, that's that last little part. It kind of took me a while to get there, but that last little part, I think, addresses your label question, which is that, we have to follow our best judgment now because that's all we got. There is no hard and fast rule about when exactly a label is messing with another label or whatever you said. This is something that will evolve as we evolve. And so, in the meantime, we have to follow our heart and try and do the right thing. Spiritual practice is never an excuse not to do the right thing. Even you can't, like Sri Ramakrishna said to his disciple Yogananda, you can't allow yourself to get ripped off. You have to be smart. Don't act like an idiot. Oh, I'm so spiritual. I'm just a naive waif, and you can take advantage of me. No good. So I think, did that do it? It did? Okay.
So in the beginning, it may help. Rather, it helps if one identifies with the level. But gradually, we have to transcend that. That might be there. So you should not be confined there. We have to transcend. Any other question?
That was too, you're afraid. I'll give another
like,
super long answer, right?
Like, a monk. We also identified with some level. So this helps. It's like a dog with collar. So everybody understands, okay, this is he has some master. So in the beginning that helps, but that one should not confine there, rather transcend that limit.
Sri Ramakrishna's parable about the hedge that needs to be fenced in the beginning when it's a sapling is the same idea. I wear this, and yeah, it is helpful. It reminds me of what my vocation is, if nothing else. And I still need reminders for this. Maybe someday I won't. But, also to keep in mind that the ultimate goal is beyond all labels. These things are not permanent. We're going to transcend this. In the meantime, yeah, get rid of the bad labels and have some good ones. Yeah.
You were talking about Ramakrishna's talking about, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, in terms of realization. And it seems like, yeah, breakfast is happening, that's great, because you don't have to wait as long. But, dinner could be, millions of lives. So it seems like...
Even more, yeah.
The patience aspect seems very, critical and crucial and huge.
Well, what is it? Sri Krishna says that no matter where men walk, it leads to me. Whatever path men choose is my path. No matter where men walk, it leads to me. And you could say that in the very beginning, where in the Imitation of Christ it says, come and follow me, all you who would not walk in darkness, says the Lord. Well, eventually we're all going to do that, according to the Bhagavad Gita. Now, what's eventually? You think about, like I mentioned the Big Bang earlier. That was supposed to be 14.5 billion years ago or so. And of course, that's just one cycle in Hindu cosmology. It's infinite, backwards and forwards, universes, over and over again. So yeah, you can be here for a long, long time. And but take some solace, again, in the Bhagavad Gita. Sri Krishna says that anyone who has once asked the path to union with Brahman, no evil end ever befalls him. He'll be born again in the home of prosperous parents and will be dragged onward towards the path of union with Brahman, even in spite of himself. So once you have sincerely asked to know God, to find God, you are on this path. You have been caught in a kind of tractor beam. And I will tell you that I have seen this, the truth of that verse, that you will be dragged onward on this path, even in spite of yourself. I have seen it in my own life and in the lives of others. I have seen this. And I will tell you, from my own experience and eyewitness testimony, that it is far less painful if you just go along with the program. If you resist this path and say, oh, I'm going to get dragged, never mind, I'll just get dragged on in spite of myself, bad idea. Much better to actually try and walk and be responsible and constructive and move forward in your spiritual life. You will find much less pain. Nevertheless, there is that security that we're all going to get there. And if you do walk and you do make an effort, it is said the Lord looks very kindly on our little efforts here. It's put in various, I've heard 10 steps and 1 step, but you do 10 steps, the Lord does 100 steps. You know, the devil's in the detail. What's exactly a step and what's 100 steps? Well, these things are hard to say. But I do believe, and I've seen in my own life, that even some pathetic efforts that I've made have been acknowledged and make a difference. And also in the lives of others. You know, I mean, we don't, as Sri Ramakrishna says, how small is the power that God has given to man and how little is the effort he can put forth with that power. And so, doesn't God know that? Doesn't he understand our limitations? Isn't he supposed to be nice? And so, yeah, I don't think we have to worry about being kept in a cage forever, you know, trying to get out. You know, it seems like that sometimes. We have to make this effort. But the universe responds lovingly. As Sri Ramakrishna says, the mother cat treats the mouse one way and her own kitten a very different way. You know, once you've made God the goal of your life, you can expect to a certain extent different treatment. On the other hand, that doesn't mean your life is going to be smooth. You still have stuff to learn here. And so, you know, this is a constant journey of learning that we're on. We are going to learn more and more about ourselves and about our spiritual growth and all that. And so, yeah, we have to be patient. You're absolutely right. We do. On the same time, we should be optimistic and hopeful because ultimately we're all going to reach the goal. That's this universal salvation message that Sri Ramakrishna gives and the Bhagavad Gita gives too. And like I said, you can find that also in early Christianity. And I would imagine probably somewhere or other you can find that in every religion somewhere.
So you can
Yeah.
share your experience of the one that you're talking about. It willy-nilly will be dry. So better to...
Jeez. Gosh, let's see. What can I think? You know, I've seen people that, actually there's one living in Hollywood right now, I can think about it, who is this really nice guy. I knew him 30 years ago, and I thought, gosh, this guy would make a great monk, and he was living with us as a monk. He was about my age, and I don't know what happened, but he disappeared and got married, had a kid, and now they're gone, and he's back. And he's still a really nice guy, and he still seems like he's a great, and now he's too old to join, but he just had to go do this thing. And now here he is, back living in the Hollywood monastery after 30 years. Does he wish that he could have probably just stayed and done the practice? I haven't asked him that question, but I get the feeling he does. Now, why did he leave, and what all happened, and all those kinds of details? I don't know, but it happened. And that's just one, and it's the one that comes to my mind because he's just moved in a few months ago. I mean, this isn't that uncommon to stray and get pulled back. I mean, it happens. There's that story of Jesus gives in the New Testament. It says that the shepherd has 100 sheep, and one of them gets lost. He leaves the 99 and goes and gets the one and brings it back. So this happens. We get brought back to the path. And like I say, don't go there. Don't do that. Try and stay on track. Don't rely on that. It's painful. I mean, it took the man I'm talking about 30 years to get back here. That's a long time. I mean, nothing wrong with it, but, you know, it's just a lot of time out there doing this and then eventually coming back. It's just smoother if you stick with the path. Yeah. There's other stories. That's basically the upshot of all of them. Something distracts you from something, and then you come back. There's another one I know in Texas right now, but anyway, it doesn't matter. It's the same story again and again with just different particulars. You know. Yeah.
Well, yesterday you were talking about the guy that was going to take his phone and sign it out.
That was me. That was me.
Going
Yeah.
to the baseball game?
Yeah, that was me.
Oh, I thought it
Well, he was with me. We were two of us. Yeah, okay.
Okay, but you said that was part of the purification process.
No, I didn't say that. That's what Swami Swananda said. See, this is great. You give these talks, and people come back and they tell you these things, and you go, wait a minute, did I say that? Anyway, go ahead.
So what's the difference between, how do you know that you're just being purified and
See, that's the great thing about that answer. It's the answer to everything in our lives. The good and the bad and the ugly, all of it. It is all part of the purification process. The more that we can think that whatever it is we're going through, if we like it, if we don't like it, if it's something in between, whatever it is, keep that teaching in your mind all the time. This is all part of the purification process. The reason I'm going through every single little thing in my life is for purification. All of it is purifying me. Absolutely, we want to believe that. I mean, it's this wonderful teaching he gave me that I got just because I wanted to go to a baseball game.
kind of just sounds like
You don't like
how
this.
you are defiant, you're straying away, but you're really just being purified, right?
Oh, no, you can't. Self-deception's no good. No, you can't do that. No, it's. I mean, if you're volitionally, no, if you're willing yourself off the path, I mean, what I'm talking about is the things in your life that happen that you can't explain. Or the things, whether you like them or not. You won the lottery. It's part of the purification process. Now, you're going to go cheat on your spouse? No. I mean, you can't. We cannot deceive ourselves that way. That doesn't work. Self-deception, hypocrisy and self-deception, those two things, Swami Shivananda says, are unforgivable. God does not forgive those two things. Because he can't. You're fooling yourself. Who's going to help you? So yeah, you can't fool yourself. You've got to be honest with yourself. Yeah. I mean, you can never use religion as a dodge or a hustle. It doesn't work. I mean, it may fool people, but it's not going to get you anywhere.
It's like the thief wearing the constable dress and trying to, the thief wearing the
Oh, yeah,
dress
yeah.
and saying that he will find the thief. Self-deception.
Wait, no, I don't know this one. Okay, I don't think I know that one. Wait, but there was a hand back here. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering, you had that quote from the Gita about, I don't remember what the exact phrase, it was like, experiencing love is experiencing God.
To know is to love me, my innermost nature, the truth that I am. That one?
Yeah, that one, yeah.
What did I say?
To love
I
is,
said it wrong. To love is to know me.
right, and so I'm just thinking, like, because love, what we know is love, on some level is like a biological function. Like your brain is firing.
Well, that's secondary, but yeah.
Sure, but I just wanted to see, like, how you reconcile this, where it's just like,
Reconcile. What am I
so
reconciling?
you have like this biological function. It's like,
Yeah.
I see this person, and so I'm like evolutionary hardwired to see, like, I see this person.
Okay, but I would argue that that's secondary.
Okay, tell me about the primary then.
Yeah, God.
Okay.
Spiritual. The only reason is it says in the Upanishads, the husband loves the wife not for the sake of the wife, but for the sake of the indwelling self. And then after that initial attraction of God, you project all this noise on top of it. Body, personality, and then your body and your personality undergo a change. All those second things are secondary. Primary is the attraction of God. All the attraction in the world, according to Eastern thinking, is the attraction of God. The only attraction in the world is the attraction of God. All these other things that we think are attracting us are because we're confused, and we're trying to overcome that confusion. It's a good question. And it's one of my favorite teachings because it explains every single motivation. Swami Vivekananda says love is the only motive power in this universe. Love is why everyone does everything. The robber robs maybe because he wants to feed a kid or something. I mean, we all have or he's afraid, the murderer kills someone because he's afraid that someone is going to injure his love, maybe. There's some love power that is behind everything that we do. It's just misguided at times. And we cause each other and ourselves all kinds of pain because of that. But anyway, yeah, it's one of my favorite teachings in Vedanta, that everyone is really trying for love here. We're just misguided. I mean, and some of us are more misguided than others. And what's our natural response to that? Sympathy. They want love too. They're just going about it the wrong way. Lord, please help them to clarify their intent so they understand that what they really want is love. I remember I had a guy come to the desert. We're having these meditation groups in the desert. And this guy shows up, and he's been coming around for a while. And one day he lets it out, I'm going to meet my future wife here. I'm convinced I'm going to meet my future wife here. And I said, well, why do you want to meet your future wife here? He says, well, I've always wanted to fall in love. And I said, what you really want is love. That's what you want. You don't want a wife, you want love. But see, we can't separate these things. We can't separate love from a wife. To fall in love with a wife is love in his mind. But what he really wants is not a wife. What he really wants is love. It's what we all really want.
I think that original is bhaktya mam abhijanati. So bhakti means devotion. But sometimes it's translated as love also. By devotion, that means one-pointed love, devotion, he knows me. That's the original. So sometimes we lose the meaning while translating some text. So always it is better to go back to the original. So that then it may be clearer. Bhaktya mam abhijanati. Tattvinash tat. So they're like, he knows me through devotion, through love. So like that may be the translation. Any other question?
Can you talk a bit about how the different parts of your help the Bhakti? I think Swami initially talked about jnana.
That's a whole other lecture. Practically speaking, I would say that one of the best ways to increase your devotion and love is to follow Holy Mother's simple advice: do not find fault with other people. If you want to grow in devotion, that is absolutely one of the best, most practical teachings that you can find. Now, how do you do it? It's hard because it's work. When you meet someone and their faults, you don't have to do any work to find those faults. They're just right there. Oh, here's all the things wrong with that person. it's just it's like you read it it's the cover of the book. But then to actually find the virtue in that person is work. You have to struggle for that. And especially if you don't like the person, it's difficult to see any virtue in this person because I'm so caught up in my dislike of this person. So, there's this story about, what's that guy's name? Jack Cornfield. Anybody know who that is? You all do, just about. A Buddhist teacher. He went to a monastery in Thailand after he'd given up his job, and I think he was Thai forest tradition, is that right? Anyway, I don't know, it's some Buddhist tradition. I think it's Thai forest. And so he gives up his job, renounces everything, goes and lives in this monastery in Thailand. He's the junior most guy in the monastery. And he is given the task of saluting all of his senior brothers every day. And that's everybody, since he's the low man on the totem pole. So he's given up everything. He's found this teacher he loves. He's flown all the way around the world to do this thing. And he realizes that a lot of these guys that he has to bow down to and salutes are just a bunch of kind of local yokels, bumpkins, that are there because they got a free meal. It happens. You look, even in our monasteries in India, well, even in Hollywood, actually, now, people inside the monastery are living a lot better than the people outside the monastery. You see that. There's people on the streets outside the monastery, and you think, well, why don't they join the monastery? They'd be a lot better off. Well, some people do. They think, well, I'm not too keen on the philosophy, but I got a soft bed, and I got a hot meal, and, roof, all these things. So he finds that there are a significant number of people who do not share his sincerity. And yet, he is tasked with bowing down to every single person. So what does he do? Well, what you could do is say, this is a bunch of baloney, these people are fakes, I'm getting back on the plane and going back to my life in the Bay Area. That's one option. But he loves the teacher, and he's fallen in love with the ideal, and he doesn't want to do that. And at the same time, he doesn't want to be a hypocrite. He doesn't want to just pretend to have reverence for these people that he doesn't revere. So what's the way out? He chooses. He finds, and this is the work, this is where the work part comes in, he finds one good quality. He studies these people that he's living with, and he finds one good quality in each person. Now that's work. You have to do that work. You have to think about this other person, try and see life from their perspective, and try and understand the virtue of that person. It requires a little unselfish practice to do this, but it can be done, and everyone has it. There is no one without virtue. Even the most despicable person that we can conceive of has some virtue. And so he did this exercise where he found a virtue in every single person that he had to salute. And then what he did was, when it was his job in the morning to bow down and salute that person, he remembered this person's virtue and saluted the virtue inside that person. So, brilliance, really. It's an example of Holy Mother's teaching in action. I mean, I don't think he knows anything about Holy Mother, maybe he does, but that was his method, and it's a good one. And this is definitely something that you face in the monastery. I mean, at least in your life, your domestic life, you chose this person sometimes, or at least even if your marriage was arranged, other people thought this was a good idea. In the monastery, you don't know who's going to walk in next, and you wind up sitting across the table from somebody for years that you would not spend 5 minutes with out in the world if you had, your natural inclinations satisfied. So you have to figure this out. How am I going to see value in this person and respect that value? And so you have to try to overlook these faults, and every time the faults come to your mind, you replace it. It's a kind of mental allopathy. You replace the thought in your mind of this person's fault with the virtue that you have discovered in them. It's an exercise. Very practical, takes time, but it definitely does help with our devotion. There's no question about it. So yeah, that's a practical, but I mean, to talk about all the yogas and devotion, I mean, that's, it's several lectures, really. Yeah.
Thank you.
You guys have had enough. I heard somebody say they have to go. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Swami Arupeshananda, coming here and sharing your thoughts. And thank you all. We come to close to this 10th session, and we are very happy to see some of our old faces that we missed many times. Anyway, so you are most welcome, and next week Swami Kripamayananda is coming from Toronto. Not next week, week next. So you are most welcome to join us and to have another feast. And after that, Swami Bodhasharananda is coming from the headquarters. Bodhasharananda is one of our Assistant General Secretary of headquarters. So he's coming in May. So you are most welcome, and notification reaches you, and you also can go to our website. Everything is given there. So please join us with Swami, and we have little prasad there. All of us are invited to join. Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll say our prayer. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tatsat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Thank you. Okay, food prayer also. She's asking. So we'll say here. Om Brahmarpanam Brahmavi Brahmagno Brahmanahutam Brahmaivate Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. Hari Om Tatsat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.